In a decision that is already being called historic, the Supreme Court has issued a landmark 6-3 ruling that is set to reshape the landscape of gun rights in America for years to come. The justices, meeting in the nation's highest court, have weighed in on a case that has drawn national attention and sparked intense debate across the country. At the heart of the case was Hawaii's restrictive concealed carry law, which the court has now struck down. This move not only impacts Hawaii, but also sends shockwaves through the national conversation about the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. The ruling is expected to influence how other states approach their own gun regulations, especially those with similarly strict laws. The majority opinion, authored by Justice Clarence Thomas, argued that requiring individuals to obtain explicit permission from property owners before carrying firearms places an undue and excessive burden on the fundamental right to self-defense. The court emphasized that the Constitution protects the right to carry firearms for self-defense outside the home, and that overly restrictive permitting systems are inconsistent with this principle. As a result, the decision invalidates similar laws in other states, including California and New York, which have relied on broad gun-free zones and discretionary permitting. The court made it clear that such restrictions must be rooted in clear historical precedent, something the majority found lacking in the challenged laws. This sets a new standard for evaluating gun regulations nationwide. In a strongly worded dissent, the court's liberal justices expressed deep concern that this expansion of gun rights could undermine public safety and erode the authority of property owners to control firearms on their premises. They warned that the ruling could make it more difficult for states to address gun violence and protect vulnerable communities. The ruling now sets a powerful and far-reaching precedent, forcing states across the country to re-examine their firearm regulations. Legal experts predict a wave of new lawsuits and legislative battles as states scramble to adjust their laws to comply with the Supreme Court's new guidance. The decision is expected to be a major turning point in the ongoing debate over gun control in America. Its immediate effect is a direct challenge to the foundation of modern gun control in several states, with the potential to reshape how Americans think about the balance between individual rights and public safety. As the nation reacts, the full impact of this ruling will unfold in courtrooms, legislatures, and communities across the country. The case began in Hawaii, where a law made it a crime for concealed carry permit holders to bring firearms onto private property without explicit permission. Gun rights advocates argued this default ban rendered permits nearly useless for self-defense outside the home. Hawaii defended the law as a way to protect property rights and public safety, but plaintiffs said it created an unconstitutional barrier to exercising Second Amendment rights. The Supreme Court's decision now puts similar laws in states like California and New York on shaky ground. States must confront the reality that their own frameworks may soon be challenged or overturned. The Hawaii case has become a turning point in the national gun rights debate. The Supreme Court's recent ruling is not an isolated event, but rather a direct extension of the court's landmark 2022 Bruin decision, a case that fundamentally reshaped the legal landscape surrounding the Second Amendment and gun rights in America. In Bruin, the court established a new, rigorous standard. Any modern gun regulation must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, as it existed at the time of the Second Amendment's ratification in the late 18th century. This means that contemporary laws are now judged against the practices and beliefs of America's founders, rather than modern policy concerns or public safety arguments. The Bruin decision unleashed a tidal wave of legal challenges across the country, with plaintiffs targeting long-standing gun laws and forcing judges to delve into centuries-old legal records. Courts, often unaccustomed to acting as historians, now must sift through historical documents, expert testimony, and conflicting interpretations of early American law to determine the constitutionality of modern regulations. In the recent Hawaii case, the justices scrutinized a state law that broadly banned carrying firearms on private property open to the public. After an exhaustive review, they concluded that there was no historical precedent from the founding era to justify such a sweeping restriction, and thus, the law could not stand under the Bruin framework. Through this decision, the court reaffirmed its commitment to the history and tradition test, making it clear that only those gun regulations with deep, well-documented historical roots will survive constitutional scrutiny. Laws lacking such roots are now far more vulnerable to being struck down. The Bruen precedent now stands as the bedrock for all future Second Amendment cases, joining earlier landmark decisions like Heller and McDonald. Its influence is already reshaping the legal landscape, guiding lower courts and lawmakers alike as they navigate the complex intersection of gun rights and public safety. With the history and tradition test firmly in place, the path for enacting new gun control measures has become significantly narrower. The enduring shadow of Bruen ensures that the debate over the Second Amendment will continue to be fought not just in legislatures, but in the archives of American history. The Supreme Court's new approach has already upended California's open carry ban. A federal appeals court, citing Bruen, ruled that California's prohibition on openly carrying handguns in public violates the Second Amendment. The court found that open carry was historically common and dismissed arguments that the ban was necessary for modern public safety. While California's permitting process remains, the core ban is gone, setting a precedent for other Western states. The state's governor has vowed to fight back, but the domino effect is underway. This case, alongside the Hawaii ruling, shows how the history and tradition test is dismantling modern gun control. The conflict between state regulation and judicial defense of gun rights is only intensifying. A key unresolved issue is what counts as a sensitive place where guns can be banned. The court rejected Hawaii's attempt to treat all private property as sensitive by default, demanding a strong historical basis for such designations. States like New York and New Jersey have tried to expand gun-free zones, but these efforts face fierce legal challenges. Courts now must decide which modern restrictions have historical support, leading to a patchwork of rulings and confusion. The Supreme Court's decision pushes back against broad gun-free zones, requiring specific, historically grounded justifications. The fight over sensitive places will shape the Second Amendment's boundaries for years to come. The Supreme Court is set to hear more major Second Amendment cases, including challenges to bans on gun ownership by felons and restrictions on so-called assault weapons. States argue these laws are vital for public safety, while gun rights advocates say they lack historical precedent. Legal battles over high-capacity magazine bans are also advancing, with both sides citing the Bruen standard. Each new case could further redefine who can own guns, what types are protected, and what limits are allowed. The outcomes will build on Bruen and today's ruling, keeping gun rights at the center of American constitutional law. The next wave of decisions could reshape the nation's approach to firearms yet again. Beyond gun rights, the Supreme Court is weighing cases that test the limits of government power over private property. One case asks if governments must return surplus profits from tax sales, while another considers if Americans can sue foreign governments for seized property. These cases probe the boundaries of the Constitution's takings clause and due process protections. The outcomes could strengthen property rights or affirm government authority, with broad implications for homeowners and businesses. The court's decisions will help define the balance between individual liberty and state power for years to come. The court's recent decisions mark a shift toward originalism, interpreting the Constitution by its historical meaning. The history and tradition test is now reshaping not just gun rights, but also property law and government regulation. This approach is praised by some for upholding constitutional fidelity, but criticized by others as out of step with modern needs. The court's willingness to revisit settled law signals that many areas of American life could be transformed. These rulings are part of a larger constitutional realignment, with the past playing a more direct role in shaping the present. Today's Supreme Court ruling marks a defining moment in American history, one that will echo for generations. By expanding the interpretation of the Second Amendment, the court has set a new precedent that will influence not just legal scholars, but the daily lives of millions of Americans. This decision is more than a legal technicality. It's a powerful statement about the nation's values and priorities. The ruling has deepened America's divide over guns, intensifying passionate debates on both sides. Across the country, people are taking to the streets, voicing their hopes and fears about what this means for their communities and their safety. The decision redraws the lines between personal freedom and public safety, challenging lawmakers and citizens alike to reconsider where those boundaries should lie. It raises urgent questions about how to balance individual rights with the collective good. States and communities now find themselves in uncharted territory, tasked with interpreting and implementing new legal standards. Some states may move quickly to expand gun rights, while others will seek ways to maintain stricter controls, leading to a patchwork of laws across the nation. For some Americans, this is a hard-won victory for liberty and constitutional rights, a moment to celebrate the affirmation of personal freedoms. For others, it feels like a step backward for public safety, sparking anxiety about the potential for increased violence and the challenges facing law enforcement and families. The so-called history and tradition test, now central to gun law cases, will remain a battleground for future legal fights. Lawyers, judges, and advocates will continue to debate what the founders intended and how those intentions fit into today's complex society. This moment demands not just legal expertise, but public engagement and understanding. Every American has a stake in these decisions, and the conversation is far from over. The debates happening in courtrooms, on social media, and in living rooms across the country will shape the rights and responsibilities of every citizen. These discussions are about more than laws. They're about the kind of nation we want to be. The story is far from over. The legal landscape is shifting, and the next chapter is yet to be written. Courts will continue to interpret the law, legislatures will debate new policies, and citizens will have the power to influence change through their voices and their votes. Staying informed and engaged is more important than ever. So join the conversation, ask questions, and make your voice heard as America's legal landscape continues to evolve. The future is being shaped right now, by all of us.